The world of children's entertainment has been around for a very long time now, with shows like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street basically defining children's television from the very start, back in the late 1960s. And since then, many great, sweet, charming shows for small children had come out, especially when it comes to animation. Beloved shows from the 90s and 2000s like Little Bear, The Backyardigans, Blue's Clues, Roly Poly Oly, Clifford the Big Red Dog, etc., to modern day gems like Bluey, Eleanor Wonders Why, The Tiny Chef Show, and even Carl the Collector. And I can completely understand why these shows are widely loved, the great tones, lovable characters, and the charming stories they have. However, there are those preschool shows like Caillou that are often criticized online because of the main character acting out in several episodes. And there are the kids shows that fall into the category of being both beloved and hated. In a way, mixed. These are shows that for the most part get a lot of undeserved hate from a group of certain people online, even if said shows end up not having anything wrong with them in the end, apart from only having a handful of flaws. So today, I'll be briefly talking about 3 shows that pretty much sadly fall into this category: Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Max and Ruby, and of course, Lou and the Ballet Bunch. Now, before I start, let me make things as clear as possible. For those of you watching this video that do have a negative point of view on these 3 shows, I am not trying to change your opinion on these shows whatsoever. I'm just going to simply talk about these 3 shows while talking about why they receive a stupid amount of hate, as well as understanding why they receive a stupid amount of hate, and how the hate for them could calm down a bit. So let's get started. These are what I consider to be the 3 most overhated kids shows. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is a CG animated children's series that aired on Disney Channel from 2006 to 2015, lasting for 5 seasons with a total of 125 episodes. The show basically follows Mickey and his friends as they all hang out together in this big clubhouse, and also needing to complete everyday tasks. So Mickey heads to his famous Mascador in order to get Toodles to help him out and his friends out whenever they call him. So this show is basically what you would get if you gave a famous cartoon character a preschool spin-off. I watched this show quite a bit when I was little, and to be honest, I frankly found it enjoyable rewatching it as a teen. The one thing that I found out about this show when it came out back in 2006 is that this show was receiving a ton of criticism and hate online. The reason? Well, for basically being a different installment from the Mickey Mouse series compared to the classic animated shorts from Walt Disney. Speaking of which, I've also heard that some people say that this show was apparently a disgrace to Walt Disney. Alright, as we probably all know by now, putting words in a dead person's mouth is very disrespectful, and I don't think I need to go into more detail on why it is bad to do that, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Anyways, the show itself is pretty much fine. However, I do understand why some people wouldn't like this show. It's more than obvious that the average person would prefer the classic Mickey over this. And in all honesty, I would too. But that doesn't mean that I flat out hate Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I mean, Mickey's still pretty much his happy-go-lucky self, Donald is still his hilarious, short-tempered self, Goofy is still, well, Goofy, and I pretty much see all the other variations of the characters to be pretty much the same, though they are more toned down for a preschool audience. I mean, heck, even Pete is still his mischievous self. I mean, the guy straight up stole Mickey's Clubhouse one time. So with all that said, I don't have much to say about Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It definitely has its flaws, and it's not a masterpiece of children's television by any means, but I still think it's a good show, though I do get why some people wouldn't exactly vibe with it. But with a show like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, in all honesty, it'll probably help the target demographic that's watching this show to discover the original source material, then finding out more about Mickey Mouse himself. However guys, nothing is gonna ever change the fact that Mickey's Mascador song is a freaking banger. Like, seriously.
Mousker hey, Mousker hi, Mousker ho! Mousker ready, Mousker set, here we go!
Anyways, on to the next one. Alright, well here's the favorite. Max and Ruby is a Canadian children's animated series that aired on both Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. from 2002 to 2019, lasting with a total of 7 seasons with a total of 130 episodes. Damn. The show follows 2 bunny siblings, of course, Max and Ruby, as they both live alone in a yellow house, as they both do typical sibling dynamics throughout the show. You know, what a typical older and younger sibling generally do. Ruby, Max's older sister, always tries to watch out for Max, getting him out to mischief and trouble. And I think it's pretty obvious as to why this show receives a ton of hate in certain areas on the internet. Ruby often drags Max into her activities to play with her. And more than not, it often has to do with tea parties. And tea parties. And tea parties. And other stereotypical girly things, but thankfully not to the minimum. I get why many people would just flat out hate this show mainly because of Ruby, and while I do agree that Ruby can get kind of irritating in dragging Max in her activities, I honestly don't hate her all that much, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, Max will always be the GOAT character for this show, but I never really found Ruby this unlikable as many other people did as kids. Most of the time, Ruby is just trying to take care of Max and have fun with him, as older siblings typically do. Granted, the way that she does all those things often just comes off as her being kind of snarky and too polite. But most of the time, whenever I'm rewatching this show at times as a teen, I sometimes find the way that Ruby tries to take care of Max to honestly be pretty hilarious if I were to be honest.
Bad egg. No, good egg. Try it, you'll like it. Bad egg. I think I'll have one more strawberry while I wait for you to try that egg.
There is also another reason why many people don't really like this show all that much. And as I brought up before, it has to do with Max and Ruby living alone, with no parental supervision throughout most of the show. And so many people were wondering why Max and Ruby's parents were never shown throughout most of the show, apart from their grandma. Well, according to the creator of Max and Ruby, Rosemary Wells, the parents were intentionally left out in most of the stories to allow the children to resolve their own conflicts and issues independently, as in by themselves. And also the dynamic between the characters was meant to reflect on how children interact and solve problems without adult intervention getting in the way. Well, I mean, if you ask me, that is honestly really understandable. Sometimes siblings will always have 17 years worth of bickering to do before they move out. So there's my look at Max and Ruby. Well, I honestly think that this show is just great. It's very funny, the dynamic between Max and Ruby can be hilarious at times, and I do really like the art direction and style that the show has. However, I do also get why Max and Ruby wouldn't be somebody's cup of tea, or a kid's cup of tea, mainly because of Ruby, and also with Max and Ruby living alone throughout most of the show. However, it is worth noting that Max and Ruby did get parents later on in the show, but that's a whole other story. Well, I don't have much to say about this show anymore, so let's move on to the last one. Here's a more recent one, though it's still rather obscure. Lou and the Ballet Bunch is an Irish, Canadian, American, British, New Zealand children's animated series, Jesus Christ, that came out back in April of 2023 and lasted later in October of 2023 with a total of only 75 7-minute episodes, as well as a 22-minute holiday special called Bug Nullic, which technically makes 76 episodes. The show follows a 3-year-old little ladybird named Ladybird Lou, as she attends a preschool called Shell School for the first time, as she meets some new other insect friends, Biba Butterfly, Barnaby Bumblebee, Elodie Earthworm, Declan Ground Beetle, and Gus Greenfly, as they all try to navigate the social life together and the small misadventures they have, and also coping and making new friendships along the way. Their Shell School teacher, Shella, helps the bugs with some of their problems and some of the conflicts they have, which often resorts Lou and her friends making up in the end, by calming down and also understanding one another. And that's basically it. If I were to be honest, this show has a really great premise for a preschool show, and in all honesty, I also think the art style and direction for the show is really cute and quite fun to look at, as well as the cute charming songs as well in the end of the episodes. So let's take a look at what the hate for this show is all about, because this show is positively received for the most part, but I want to get to see what's happening on the other side of the internet. Well, I for one, and many others, found to really like this show. One of the main criticisms for it was due to the excessive amount of crying that goes on between Lou and her friends in the show. While I completely understand why some people would assume that a show like this would have the main kitty characters crying all the time, and how they could get pretty annoyed at it, if I were to be honest, Lou and her friends don't really often cry that much at all in the show. And I took a look at the majority of this show, and they weren't really crying all that much in the show, to be honest. And the thing is, as a reason to why Lou and her friends sometimes cry in the show is because, well, these bugs are around 2 to 4 years old. And typically, small children at that age can't really respond comprehensively yet. And yeah, for some of you, you could acknowledge that fact as well for this show. But then you can tell me that Lou and her friends cry in the most annoying way. But if I were to be honest, I didn't really find their crying to be all that annoying in this show. In fact, most of the times when Lou and her friends would cry in the show, the reasons would often be pretty understandable if I were to be honest. An example would be in the episode Packing for France. In one scene in the episode, Lou was really sad that she can't go to France with her friend Elodie, after she tells her all about what's in France and how she was really excited to go. It's more than obvious that Lou really wanted to do something fun with Elodie, but she couldn't go to France, so what did they do? Lou and Elodie pretended to go to France, with Lou's mom helping her out. And it results in a very cute lesson in the end. The other criticism with this show is that Lou and her friends tend to have small arguments from time to time whenever they disagree at times, but some people found it to be kind of extreme. I can see where they're coming from, but I wouldn't exactly say it went to the extreme height with it. Sure, some episodes like Counting Spaghetti and Toy Hospital do have that kind of scenario, and while I do understand that Lou was not perfect in the middle of those episodes, they didn't make me hate this show. I wasn't annoyed with these two episodes, though I do agree that the delivery of the lessons of those two episodes were said in a very slippery way. And those are pretty much the only criticisms I see for this show online. While I completely understand why some people wouldn't really vibe with this show because of that, the rest of the show is still pretty much good for the most part in my opinion. I like the dynamics between Lou and her friends, I love the cute songs that play in the end of the episodes, and the show has a lot of cute moments when it comes to its episodes, with the long goodbye and Elodie's graduation for being great examples. And I can see that this show is pretty much meant to teach its target audience on how to meet friends for the first time, agreeing to disagree, apologizing to one another, and learning to get along in general. And while I do agree that Lou does have her flaws in this show, I don't flat out hate her as a character. And neither of the other characters as a matter of fact. So in the end, while I still think Lou and the Ballet Bunch is a great show for preschoolers in my opinion, I do completely understand its flaws. If I were to be honest, I didn't expect this show to be all that charming when I first watched it. I mean, I knew it was going to be a cute watch, but still. And I do completely understand the criticisms for this show as well. It's fine if this show isn't your thing, but one of the worst preschool shows of all time? Not even close to that extent in my opinion. The thing I hate about all of this is that most of the children's TV shows nowadays don't really have the main characters be any sort of emotional, and have them just be goody two-shoes throughout most of the show. If you ask me, having children let their emotions out is, more often than not, a better idea when it comes to children's shows, and despite how they might execute it and how some people may think of it, I completely understand why this is the case. Not to have your children shield their emotions from the world and to suck it up right away. That'll just do so much more damage to their growth. Well guys, that's pretty much it. Again, I completely understand that this video didn't change any of your opinions on any of these shows, but I at least hope I gave you a more of an understanding. This was honestly a really interesting video for me to make, as being fascinated about what goes on in production of these kinds of shows. So, what do you guys think? I honestly would recommend taking a look at some of these shows, or rewatching them occasionally. And it's fine if you don't really want to, because you're obviously above the age demographic for these. Well, I am too, but I just wanted to make this video nonetheless. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace.